Today we're talking about Anyone But You, the romance set in Australia starring Glenn Powell and Sydney Sweeney. Now, I know this movie came out a long time ago and I was gonna make a video about it initially, but then I was like, no, I don't have loads to say. And then the more I thought about it, the more time I had to stew on this movie, the more I realized how much is actually wrong with it, and it really wasn't as good a movie as I thought it was. I think it's quite overhyped. Although it's enjoyable and it's a fun, feel-good, easy watch, it's definitely not even going down in like my top 20 favorite rom-coms. And this made me realize we are really in an age of the death of the rom-com, and it feels like every time studios try to revive it or bring it back, it's like they get worse every single time that they try. Now, this movie did really well at the box office on quite a low budget, and they made a lot of money from it. I think mostly because of the marketing, because everybody wanted to see Glenn and Sydney in a movie together. They're two hot people, and they very much, through the marketing of the movie and their interviews, made it seem like there was something romantic going on between them. That was the narrative the PR, the media was being fed, and so everyone was speculating that even though Sydney's engaged and Glenn's, I think, in a relationship or something, they were speculating that they're going to leave their respective partners for each other. I don't really care because I didn't find it interesting, and to me it was clearly just this faked chemistry for the purpose of the movie. Like, their partners were probably supporting them to get this movie together, even if not, like, it kind of doesn't matter. Do you know what I don't care. Like, I don't know these people. And the movie did really well at the box office because of that, because they built up such a good hype around it, and people wanted to go and see this chemistry in person. They wanted to see what was up. They were like, okay, all right then. If apparently this chemistry is so good, let's see it then. And they were really surprised, because the chemistry and banter that was present in the interviews and the build-up was not present really in the movie itself at all. This is what I would classify as a dead rom-com. So let's talk about it. Lately, I've seen a lot of videos circulating saying, this is the worst rom-com to ever rom-com. This is the worst rom-com I've ever seen. If you're one of those people saying that, I do have to ask, have you ever watched a rom-com? Because there are some bad ones. There are some worse ones. The After franchise, 365 Days, 50 Shades of Grey. I'm just saying, this is very mediocre, but I would hardly classify it as bad. Think Something Borrowed, Crazy Stupid Love, Beastly, just go with it. There are some properly bad movies out there if you so wish to go forth and seeketh them. This one, it's not absolutely awful. I feel like people are being a bit harsh. I'm seeing so much like vitriol and like, I'm so disappointed, this is terrible. It's not terrible, it's just a bit bland, and I just think it was overhyped. The cast all seems lovely, and they obviously had a wonderful time making it if you look at the behind the scenes, and it was really just meant to be a fun, silly, goofy, light movie, not something that you take too seriously. It's meant to be something where you just watch it and you leave the theater feeling happy and in a good mood, which is what it did for me. So maybe I'm one of the few that actually slightly comes to this movie's defense in that it did make me feel good. I watched it with my younger brother and he loved it. So I think that also for some younger people, it's just a really fun family movie. Not a family movie, maybe not for kids, but I mean, like, you can watch it with your friends and have a really good time. But the problem with this movie is it's very, very dumb, contrived, and cringy, and I think that's why a lot of people didn't like it.
Better?
Just play the trailer.
I liked at first the commentary on Australian culture because I'm Australian and I miss it terribly, and so I thought it was really cute. I don't care if it's inaccurate geographically. I loved the Sydney Harbour Bridge, I loved the commentary on the coffee culture, I loved the ocean, the beautiful house, the amazing fruit platters. Like, all of that to me felt very quintessentially Australian. All of the hilarious Australian phrases that we use, which are just so funny to me. Like, I loved all that, and it made me feel really, really good. Like, when they arrived in Australia, I was like, oh my god, that's my home, That's my home. Like, it made me happy. We never see movies set in Australia, so I like that. But they did stereotype Australian people as extremely dumb and daft and airheaded. And what is up with the repeated random references to Tasmania? This is the movie's inherent problem, is they throw stuff in there without any real sense of thought around why this is actually important and why it's included. So let's get into the cast, okay? We have B and Ben, and we have their respective families and friends. So B is a student, but she just actually quit law school, and Ben, I guess, is in finance, and he's a bit older than her. But when B meets Ben, it's a well-written meet cute, which mistakenly gives you the idea that this is going to be like a really great movie, because she's trying to get to the bathroom. He helps her out and pretends they're married so that she's allowed to like get the pass for the bathroom. It's very gentlemanly. He waits for her with her tea while she goes to pee. It's very, very sweet. He even removes some toilet paper that's stuck onto her shoe. So it's giving gentleman, and it's just a really nice, genuine meet cute. And so she goes to the bathroom while he takes her order. And while she's in the bathroom, she's sort of freaking out going, oh my gosh, it's a really cute guy, which is, I think, very realistic. And everyone in the theater laughed when she spilled water on her jeans, and so did I, because come on, like, it was funny. It was funny. Like, she just accidentally spilt water on it. Everyone was laughing. So she's just trying to like dry her jeans and hold them up. I thought it was comedic gold, to be honest. Maybe I have the sense of humor of a 7-year-old, but I don't think so. It was incredibly funny. And she's so embarrassed as well because she just wants to look perfect, you know? And then eventually she gets herself together and she leaves. I will say though that the script doesn't really make sense. Like, he asks her if she's good because he can hear some weird noises in the bathroom, and she's like, I'm good, big time. And I was like, oh, I'm good, big time? Like, what does that mean? I've never heard anyone say this before. So you see this a lot with the dialogue, where sometimes the things they say don't make sense. Like when Ben calls B a disaster, he's like, this girl's a disaster. Like, no one says that. No one says that. So the script needs work, okay? There is a very awkward scene. It's weird to watch, and I don't really know what they were going for here. Like, she seems really flirty and comfortable and like into him initially before she goes into the bathroom. And then suddenly she turns really awkward and she's like, I'll see you on the other side. And then leaves to the bathroom, and the delivery was not it. Anyway, apparently they both have lots of time because they're walking around getting coffee, flirting, and the way they flirt is weird. She's like, oh, would you see me if there was a giant spider? And he was like, no, like, you'd be dead. Oh, stop. Like, it's a bit lame. But what bothered me more is then it immediately transitions to this montage of them walking around and laughing, and her going to his place for a jaffle, and them making it together and them laughing. And because there's music playing over it, you don't know what the actual conversation is. And to me, that is inherently lazy writing, is when you don't know what exactly it is that they're talking about. So you decide to just let us fill in the blanks. But I was like, come on. I actually wanted to know what they were talking about and what these very first important conversations are about, you know? Also, I find it hard to believe they didn't kiss because she's literally sat on him, straddling him and looking into his eyes, and they fall asleep together. And I meant to believe they didn't kiss once. It's kind of strange. But anyway, she gets up in the morning, she wakes up, and she's really embarrassed that she slept over. So she grabs her stuff and hurries to leave because she hasn't really been with anyone since her ex-boyfriend. She finds it embarrassing. I thought this was bizarre. Like, her being embarrassed to me when she hasn't actually kissed him or had sex with him is strange to me. She's like, oh, I don't do this. But to me, it would have made more sense if she genuinely had like a one-night stand with him, because that would explain the embarrassment, because she doesn't normally behave like this. Or even if they'd made out and it made her feel embarrassed, but they didn't do anything. So I don't understand where this embarrassment is coming from. And evidently she realizes the same thing, because she's like, what am I doing? Like, I need to go like talk to him. So she grabs her stuff and she kind of turns around to go back and see him. But by that point, he's already noticed that she's left, and his butt hurt about it. And this is where the miscommunication trope comes in, because he just assumes the worst, okay? So when he sees his friend and his roommate, they're talking about her, and he says some really mean things about her. He's like, this girl's a disaster, like, she's a nothing. She's a nothing. she's a nothing. And I don't really care about her anyway, so like, forget about it, because he's trying to defend his hurt ego. And B obviously hears this and she's so hurt that he would say these things about her, and it makes her feel like he never really cared about her. This is a very, very lazy and contrived way of introducing enemies to lovers if you don't give us a good reason for them to hate each other. This, to me, is not a good reason. This is a lazy reason. Unfortunately, it made him seem like a bit of a misogynist or a total dick, because he's saying these things about her that are really harsh, especially because later, when they reunite, he makes a comment about how she's a woman who uses her sexuality to take advantage of men, which again makes him sound like an incel or something, because she didn't do anything. She never tried to get him to buy her anything. She never had sex with him. She never seduced him with her sexuality. And so for him to kind of come up with this concept makes him sound like a total horrible guy. So this whole initial setup of this is why they don't like each other, to me, is just very contrived and dumb. And we have a flash forward to 6 months later and we meet Claudia and Hallie, who are getting married. Hallie is B's sister, which sort of brings B and Ben together again through their mutual connections, because his flatmate slash friend is the brother of the girl who's getting married. So this is how they reunited again after not seeing each other for like, I think 6 months. But even though it's been like 6 months, there's still very much this burning hatred that they harbor towards one another. So they start insulting each other as soon as they see each other.
Wow, you are a child.
It's a pretty long flight. Do you want anything from the front of the boat?
I'm all good on creatine and smell thick insecurity.
Again, is this believable? Not particularly, but anyway, she's annoyed that they're gonna have to spend this whole wedding week together, but they all travel together to Australia for this wedding celebration, and even being on the same plane is awkward for them. My favorite scene has to be when they're getting on the plane and they're fighting, and then there's this old man listening, and Ben says to the old man, "Nothing small about me," and winks at him, and the old man's like, "What the fuck?" That made me laugh because it was so random. There are some really good comedic moments, but then B goes to the bathroom and she finds Ben asleep and she wants to steal his cookie, which I would totally do. Like, I totally understand this. Honestly, I'm all here for this. But she goes about it in a weird way. She straddles him backwards to try and get the cookie rather than just leaning over and taking it. And then I think her jacket gets stuck and it just looks really bad. So many people were hating on this scene, but I found it really funny. Everyone in the cinema was laughing, and it was very chaotic, but eventually she gets away from him, and so they arrive at the house, they greet everyone, and they play a bunch of welcome games, and B starts insulting Ben as part of this game. Then they fight over this candle firework thing, and it accidentally lights her sister's hair on fire, keeping in mind she's about to get married in a week and now her hair is fried, okay? So it was very immature, but it was also an accident. However, I'm getting really tired now in 2024 when this film came out of the same tired age-old trope of the parents wanting their daughter to be in a relationship and pressuring her and trying to play matchmaker. It's not aging well, it seems outdated, and they're just so obsessed with the fact that their daughter should be the one getting married and she doesn't have a +1 for this wedding. And it's just really cringy. It's really, really cringy. They even invite her ex over to join them on this holiday as some sort of last minute attempt to get her back with her ex. And I was thinking, who does this? Like, this is just very strange. And they're even hoping that B and Ben will get together because they just want her to be with someone. So they start doing this very over-the-top gossiping where they get into little groups and they basically gossip about how B likes Ben and Ben likes B. And they do it intentionally hoping that B and Ben will eavesdrop and overhear, and that they'll be like, wow, this person likes me. And Ben fell for it. He heard them talking about how much B likes him and he felt flattered and he was like, oh, she does like me. So it kind of worked, actually, their strategy. A lot of people were very confused by this and thought it was cringy because of the way they're doing this over-the-top Shakespearean whispering, but that's the point. A lot of people missed this. I thought it was quite public knowledge, but it's based on Shakespeare and it's an adaptation of that, and they do a lot of this thing in Shakespeare where they have eavesdropping and listening in on people's conversations and pretending they don't know they're being overheard, and that's because it's a reference to Shakespeare's Much Ado About Nothing. In one scene in this play, Don and Claudio talk loudly, pretending that they've just learned that Beatrice is in love with Benedict, hoping it will get the two of them together. Hero and Margaret stage the same trick on Beatrice, and I thought this would be obvious because even their names sound the same. This explains the fake dating trope too, because that's a key concept in Much Ado About Nothing. Also, the character Leo, who's the dad, plays tribute to the play's original Italian setting when he says cheers at the table. So there's all these little references sprinkled in throughout. There's even little Shakespearean quotes written in graffiti on the walls, that kind of thing. Like there's lots of little references. And even the wedding vows that Hallie says include a quote from the play. I love you with so much of my heart that none is left to protest. There's all these little references in there. When the couple spends the night together after the rehearsal dinner, the camera pans to a book titled Men Were Deceivers Ever, which is another quote from the play. So I'm really surprised that some people didn't get this. However, that's part of what annoyed me, is because they've got brilliant source material they can derive ideas from. So how did they mess up so bad? I mean, I genuinely want to know, did any of them read a single page from this play before making the film? Like, if you want a genuinely good Shakespeare adaptation, go watch She's the Man. That's actually a good one, you know? So Bea and Ben, because they want to get her parents off her back and get her ex to stay away from her, they agree to be a fake couple, which is a good idea in theory, but they do it terribly. It's like they've never witnessed flirting or what anyone is like in a relationship, so they do it in the most over-the-top way. So their idea of flirting to make it believable is rubbing each other's butts under their pants, picking food out of each other's teeth, and recreating Titanic on a boat. Let's not even talk about what went down on that hiking trail. So that annoyed me. It just takes the piss out of the trope in general, but it's actually a really good trope if you do it well. We also have a lot of waffle and filler scenes. I will say I do love this side character who's the blonde surfer guy. He makes me deeply uncomfortable, but I kind of love that for him. So they have this rehearsal dinner. Bea wears this beautiful blue dress. I've actually got the dress. I'm gonna wear it on my Instagram soon. I've literally got the dress. But at the rehearsal dinner, they dance together. I find it weird how boring they managed to make this dance scene. It's meant to be a deeply intimate, impactful moment where they realize they love each other or something, but it just doesn't hit, like it doesn't land. Anyway, this forces them to talk about their relationship in front of the opera house and admit their feelings, and Ben asks Bea, why did you leave? And then she tells him, you know, you scared the shit out of me. It's the first time I felt fire and I had to put it out. In regards to being scared of love and running away from intimacy, I can pledge that this is indeed a real thing, and I don't believe that it's unrealistic to get scared even when you know it's a good thing. That's part of what makes it so scary, when you feel that slight fear of trust. And I think this is the one part of the movie, at least to me, that I don't think is far-fetched. But I'm really sick of them having this built-up angst and drama over dumb misunderstandings that could have been resolved through a really simple conversation. Like later that night, because they connect romantically, they sleep together. This is quite a good scene, actually. I thought this was quite juicy, like it was quite sexy. But they sleep together and Bea mumbles something in her sleep about how she always seems to be making mistakes nowadays, and how everything she does feels like a mistake, and then she drifts off to sleep, and Ben's lying awake all night thinking about it, and he leaves in the morning to go think and process it because he's hurt, which I thought was so dumb. She said it when she was half asleep. This hurts her even more because she feels like he walked out on her as a kind of punishment. Then her parents find out that she quit law school through someone else telling them, and she says to Ben, "You told my parents I quit law school?" Keep in mind, it literally wasn't him, like he didn't tell them. And then she's furious and she says, "You're a real shit. There's a reason no one can trust you." I want to insert the clip here if I can, because goddamn, like.
I can't believe you. You told him I quit school?
No, I didn't.
You're real shit.
Wow, okay, like that was so harsh. Like, I just feel like that was too harsh. But anyway, then the dog knocks over the wedding cake. And she's like, "I'm so sorry," even though she didn't knock it over. I was like, why did you apologize? This script just doesn't make sense. But I think she's hurt because having sex with him made her feel vulnerable and intimate and connected, and she was hurt that he just left. Then they have the actual day of the wedding, and Bea's in a really bad mood. This annoyed me. It's her sister's wedding. Get a grip, smile, and don't bring it down with your poor energy. But anyway, they have the wedding day, And she tries to be happy and everything at the ceremony, but then she just gets really upset because she sees Ben dancing with Margaret, and Margaret goes to just kiss him, and she's so bothered by it. She starts crying, and she says, actually, I'm gonna go just process and have a little walk alone. And so she leaves the wedding early. I personally think that like this is so disrespectful. Like, get your shit together. It's your sister's wedding. She only has one. Yeah, she's in the taxi. She wants to go just process things at the opera house, and she's crying real tears. And this made me realize that Sydney Sweeney is just not correct for this kind of role. I think she works in more serious roles like drama and horror, and she has, you know, she's a good actress, but I don't think that this kind of light fluffy role really suits her. And because of her specific speaking voice, it makes her sound like she's bored all the time. And the person that I went to see the movie with a year ago also agreed with me that there's something off-putting about the way that she is in this movie compared to her more dramatic or thriller roles. So I just don't think she's a rom-com girl, to be honest. Anyway, then Ben goes to find her, and for some reason he has to jump off a cliff dramatically to do so because he wants to make an entrance, I guess. But he goes and he knows where she'll be at her favorite spot for self-reflection. Then he finds B, he apologizes, he says some extremely generic stuff about why she's so great and why he loves her. And then they kiss and they go back to enjoy the festivities at the wedding, and they take over the dance floor because apparently it's their wedding. I do really like the end when everyone starts singing. It's cringe, but it's super cute. But overall, anyone but you's idea of romance is crude humor, grabbing each other's butts, dogs doing yoga, and just a weird collection of random scenes stitched together that have no real significance. We have B's ex-boyfriend, who should have been removed altogether because he had no significance to the plot, and whatever this weird representation of a male friendship is, I don't even know. This movie has a very soulless, generic feel and really awkward, stilted dialogue. There's a lot of characters, and yet it's really hard to feel connected to or care about any of them. Pete is just the caricature of the funny black friend, and the way he casually sexualizes women is really gross and honestly feels very backwards for like a 2024 movie. The other actors are frankly not very good, and they don't take the time to really develop or explain any of the characters' motivations, like B's ex, for example. Nor does he introduce any real sense of stakes or conflict because she doesn't want him. We get no insight into B, who she is, why she quit law school, what she wants truly, and her relationship with her ex and why she ended things. She just says he was too nice, he was too perfect, we never fought, as if that was a bad thing. She basically wants someone she fights with more. B's character feels poorly designed after other leading ladies in rom-coms, who is normally the slightly disillusioned, cynical girl who gave up on love a long time ago, like Julia Roberts' character in Pretty Woman or Notting Hill, that kind of vibe, except they don't really pull it off. She keeps talking about how she doesn't know who she is and she's given up on a lot of things and she's such a mess. And then she gets mad at Ben for calling her a disaster, but that's what she's been calling herself for the majority of the film. And fundamentally, it's a movie about two selfish people who are kind of jerks and very immature. If you look at what they fight about, it makes them both seem immature. And if you think about it from the bride's point of view, it's her special day, and her sister just cannot get her shit together and keeps either causing drama and fighting with Ben, or they're drawing so much attention to their own romance and them falling in love that it's become the central focal point of what's meant to be your wedding. And I would be pissed because everyone knows that it's meant to be the bride's special day. And anyone with respect would know to lie low and actually give the bride her moment to shine because it's her day. And another problem with this movie is there's no sense of mystery as to why these two hate each other, because we're given away all the information right at the start of the movie. And I think it was Julia Cardney who made a video about this when it came out ages ago, and she said that the first 11 minutes of the movie destroys the film and it should have been removed, those first 11 minutes, because in those first 11 minutes we're given backstory and exposition as to why these two hate each other, what went wrong, and their initial meet cute. And her argument was basically, if you remove those first 11 minutes of the movie, you already have a setup for a far better movie. If we'd started the movie with the two of them just hating each other and us not knowing why, then we could have peeled back the layers and learned more about their history as the film unfolded, which I think is personally a genius take, and it would have made for a much better movie. I think she pointed out that in Much Ado About Nothing, we get the sense that the two leads have history and they don't like each other, but we don't know what the history is, and we need to stay and watch more to find out as it goes along. Especially because as Bea and Ben date throughout the movie or hate each other, they reveal in snippets about how they hurt the other or why they don't like each other. So this renders the first 11 minutes of the movie useless and redundant, because we find out anyway later in the movie why they hate each other. So technically, you could have just removed the first 11 minutes, right? And it wouldn't have changed anything. We would still find out the information we needed to know. So I don't want to rewatch it. It's very shallow. Like, although it was a funny movie and it read to me as more as a comedy, it wasn't really reading in terms of the romantic part of it, because this wasn't really romantic. I didn't feel a true sense of burning passion between these two. They may have had chemistry like offset or as friends, but in terms of their romantic dynamic in this movie, I was truly not getting any sense of real raw passion and angst and love between the two, which is the whole most important part of a romance. Even more important than the script is that you make sure that whenever your leads are together, that there's just fireworks, and that was lacking. And just because they're two attractive people who are conventionally good looking, that does not mean that they will have that burning passion and chemistry that the audience wants. And I think the reason why people were so excited when this came out is because we've been going through a rom-com drought for a really, really long time. And we've only recently had really, really bad stuff like Sierra Burgess' A Loser or Purple Hearts and just trash. So I think when this came out, people were so excited to have this big budget, exciting in their mind, well, it wasn't really that big a budget, but you know, something big that would come out in cinemas that's a romance, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, finally, you know, we're reviving the genre. And Sydney Sweeney was saying, we're going to bring back romance, and so everyone just overhyped it, but actually it wasn't that good. And I would never even try and compare it to movies that I think are actually really good, like Pretty Woman or How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Like, there's so much better stuff out there. This is not it. I don't think Sydney Sweeney reads as a rom-com lead. I think she works well as a lead, but in horror movies and dramas and stuff like that and shows, and I think she needs a bit more time to really establish a character and not just in a movie. So I think she works better in a TV show format, because we get to know the character gradually, and something about it was just not right with their specific chemistry as well. I felt like she had more chemistry with Nate in Euphoria than she did with Glenn in this. And I think a big failure of this movie is they didn't want to establish any real sense of vulnerability and intimacy with the two characters. We keep being told that someone had feelings, that someone's really cute, that they have a connection, but we're never actually being shown how these feelings are formed, especially because we don't actually see them getting to know each other. Now it's made me think I really want them to make one of my favorite rom-com books, The Unhoneymooners, into a movie, because I think that would actually be good and it would be better at establishing the hatred between the two. They didn't even really try with this movie. It didn't feel like they had tried, and the conflict itself just didn't make sense. So do I hate the movie? No, it's fine, it's cool, but I won't be rewatching it. And also I'm genuinely offended on Sydney Sweeney's behalf as a girl with big boobs. Why couldn't they find her some better bikinis? They looked so bad, they were not flattering, and I think they were too small for her because they were hitched up with the bra strap so high in the back to support her boobs that the bra was riding up at the back, and it honestly looked really bad. I don't think the costume department knew how to dress her, and I'm like, is it that hard? I mean, it is hard, but I thought they could have tailor-made her something, so that annoyed me as well. But let me know what you think in the comments, and I will see you guys for the next one.